The Senate president is out, and now the race begins.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Not that local races aren't important, but we don't tend to spend a lot of time on specific districts unless they have statewide impact. But when the Senate president decides that she's exiting stage left for a hospital job, which I think is in lieu for a judgeship, that's more or less the word on the street, it creates a buzz. And a guy who made the Senate president kind of nervous a couple elections ago is back here on set to talk about his bid to replace Teresa Paiva Weed. Mike Smith is my guest, and he'll be joining us momentarily. Great to have you aboard. Thanks for tuning in to my State of Mind on this wet Tuesday evening. Let's go to the rundown and see what's going on in my world or your world or what's on mine, on my mind, or what? Crumbling border wall. Crumbling border wall? Border wall is crumbling? You mean the concept is going? Lexi, ladies and gentlemen. Headline here. Who's going to pay? Trump passes the hat for his Mexican wall. Yet another creative headline. Here's the story.
President Trump is backing off on his demands to fund a wall along the Mexican border for now.
Building that wall and having it funded remains an important priority to him. But we also know that that can happen later this year and into next year.
The president had been asking Congress to include money for his wall in the spending bill being negotiated on Capitol Hill, but convincing Republicans made that a tough pitch.
The 2,200-mile wall doesn't make a whole lot of sense. There's not a big appetite for that.
In exchange, Democrats are likely to agree to increased spending on border security and surveillance. But President Trump is promising his dream of a wall isn't gone. This morning, he tweeted, "Don't let the fake media tell you that I have changed my position on the wall. It will get built and help stop drugs, human trafficking, etc." For now, the president is shifting his focus to another campaign pledge, tax reform. The president is holding private meetings ahead of tomorrow's rollout of a tax reform blueprint. The proposal will cut corporate tax rates from 35% to 15%. The Independent Tax Policy Center estimated a similar Trump plan from the campaign would cost the government nearly $2.4 trillion over a decade. But Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin says the cuts won't add to the deficit.
The tax plan will pay for itself with economic growth.
It's always the case, right? First of all, I have to ask the question to you Trump supporters out there, when does the wall of support crack? The base wants the wall. The base needs the wall. The president is not going to deliver the wall. I don't care if he calls you, me, anybody, fake news. He's not going to be able to deliver a $30 billion wall. It is not going to happen. And I just wonder, at what point does that ultimate promise begin to erode his support? The rest of the country is probably relieved that we're not spending $30 billion on a wall, and there was no way in heaven's earth that he was going to hold up the government operations for a wall. The candidate has been a chameleon on a lot of these major issues the entire way, and slowly but surely you'll figure it out. Now here's the upside. He may end up doing some good things, and this corporate tax cut is an interesting phenomenon. It's a little bit of trickle-down economics, you know, the old Reagan theory here. But they always say it's going to be paid for with a burgeoning economy. I'm not so sure that the middle America folks who swung Donald Trump's way are really excited about that particular tax cut. We shall see. In the meantime, Ivanka ran into a little bit of turbulence. Where was she? In Germany? Now, this isn't fake news. It's just exaggerated news. I mean, booed and hissed, not really. We don't have the video for some reason, but we'll get it to you tomorrow, or certainly on the radio on WPRO, weekdays 3 to 6. There was a little bit of when she praised her father. I don't call that fake news. I call that exaggerated news, and there is a big difference. All right, 911. What's your emergency? The emergency is I can't get to you. Headline, it's restored after what was an hour-long disruption. Here was the report that we first filed on this.
Technical problems began at 7:41 p.m., according to a spokesperson for the Rhode Island Department of Public Safety. Dispatchers answering 911 calls could hear the callers, but the callers could not hear them. The spokesperson says call takers used caller ID to call people back, and then they were able to speak to each other. Police urged people to call their local police and fire department in case of an emergency during the issues, and police say the 911 system was fully back up and running at 8:49 p.m. A lot of questions remain, including what caused the system to malfunction and whether every single person who called has now been checked on. Police said in some of the cases, dispatchers were sent to voicemail when they called the person back. Public safety officials are now working with software developers and technicians to figure out what happened, but they say it does not appear to be anything suspicious.
So that was an earlier midday report that was filed by Stephanie Machado at Eyewitness News, and then later the state police, during the later part of the midday, had a press conference and expressed their concern.
We are very concerned about a software malfunction in our emergency 911 telephone system that resulted in callers not being able to immediately communicate with our E911 dispatch center. While the 911 lines were never entirely inoperable, there was a breakdown in two-way communication.
You know, the interesting thing about this is, that's Kevin Barry from the state police. You know, it was kind of interesting. I got the Twitter notice on this, and I noticed that local police departments were doing reverse robocalls. It seems to me that those are direct robocalls. I couldn't figure out why some towns were calling them reverse robocalls. But anyway, people were getting information that 911 was not in service. And I'll tell you, you know, I'm not prone to, you know, panic, but when I saw the 911, you know what I immediately did? I immediately checked the main number for the local police. And of course, called the kid and said, by the way, 911's not operating. Make sure you know what and it's probably a good thing to do anyway. You should probably check to make sure your local police number is available next to your telephone just in case 911 isn't available to you. But they better get the answer on that. Here's an interesting one, worthy of conversation on the radio, and I'm sure you'll have a thought about it. Maybe you'll chat amongst yourselves as you watch this discussion. Here's the headline. Valley Breeze notes that the Senate has put a hold again on home wine delivery, but I believe the issue is still percolating, is it not? I think they're still discussing it at the legislature. How many states? 24? 34. 34 other states allow for home delivery of what they would say on, who are the characters on SNL? The mass quantities. What were the characters? I just had a brain spasm. I had it in my head. I didn't even note. What was the character? Dan Aykroyd. What was the Coneheads? I got that on my own. It's a television show. Times of the essence. Whatever. The Coneheads. You know, mass quantities. Do you know that this legislation proposal calls for allowing 24-liter bottles of wine to be delivered to your home? Now, the Liquor Association is, you know, retail says they're up in arms over this. And they say it's going to hurt them. I'm not sure why they get special preference to be protected. But it seems to me that if I ordered 24 bottles of wine, I'd have an easy time reselling them, right? I got to check on the comp allowable volume in some of the other states. Well, that's a lot of wine to have delivered at your home. I don't think it's going to hurt the liquor stores, but I don't know. It's great. Coneheads. Coneheads. All right, District 13? Senate District 13? I hope it is. Yes. It is? All right. How's that look? All right, I don't know. For some reason, I'm double-checking everything tonight. It's just one of those nights, you know. You do 10 shows a week, it happens. Rhode Island Senate President Paiva Weed leaving General Assembly to take hospital job. And then this headline, Mike Smith is back in action as the Republican. Welcome. Good to see you.
Hello, welcome. Great to see you again.
Isn't 24 bottles of wine a lot of wine?
Yeah, I mean, you must be having a big party or something.
You a wine drinker?
No, it puts me to sleep. I don't know. I can't drink wine or beer anymore. It's just like, it must be something with age. I don't know. You can't
drink beer anymore?
No, it must be like all the carbs or something, or carb overdose.
Like you're in great shape.
Yeah.
Obviously.
When I take my suit off,
beer.
it's a different story.
Wine gives me a headache.
Yes. Yeah.
Although nicely, you know, a high quality 24 bottles. I don't know. Anyway, would you support that legislation? It's actually an interesting conversation.
it's not on my radar right now.
No,
There's much more important things.
We can understand that.
Yeah.
So the Senate president is out. You got 45% against her 2 elections ago,
Yeah.
which is enough to make any incumbent and powerful incumbent nervous. Yes?
Well, it's who crossed the finish line, and Paiva Weed won that race, and unfortunately, and the loser is still the loser. So I like to. Some people like to talk about how close I did get, and that's great. But I think it's the winner is the winner.
All right. Well, that's
and the loser is the loser.
That's a practical answer. Why don't we do this? When we come back, we'll find out why the loser, his words, not mine, is taking another run at it. Seems like a much more wide open field. We'll be right back.
This is hard. I'm happy, but it's hard. I have been serving our state for most of my adult life, and I have been rewarded with the support of so many people, and with the knowledge that each and every one of them does their best to help the working families and individuals here in our state. I've been proud to represent my home, Newport and Jamestown, and all of the diverse issues that are so important to so many of us.
All right. Now, you don't have to run against her, but it'd be interesting to get your comment about her performance and her tenure as the incumbent.
I respect Paiva Weed. I think she did some great things. We actually agreed on a number of things.
Like?
Overall, I think just the vision for Newport. I believe she really did love Newport and Jamestown, and she lives there. She has a lot of close ties, and but overall, I think this is why I'm for term limits. Anytime you have a politician that's been in power for 26 years, it leads to sometimes getting more involved in the affairs of Providence than it does the affairs of your district.
Meaning she was shaking and baking, on the big picture rather than, well, listen, that's an interesting take. The other side is that you can deliver more goods for your district because you got more juice, right? I don't know.
Well, obviously there was some.
I mean, look what Speaker Mattiello was able to do. He brought 6 figures worth of legislative grants home just in the middle of a re-election cycle. So.
Well, I heard the causes she gave legislative grants to, whether it was Sale Newport or different organizations through the city. I believe in those organizations. I don't believe in the process of the legislative grants.
Thank
however.
you. I have my own term for it. It's called the Rub Dog, and the reason I call it that, kind of have my fun with it on the radio is because it's exactly what it is and what people have to do in order to get those grants.
Right.
Although if you go inside, they'll tell you, oh, no, absolutely not. Everything is above board. They're randomly issued, administratively executed, da-da-da-da-da-da. We all know that cheesy little smile in a weekday newspaper for a local rep or senator say, hey, I just gave the Johnny Cake Center $5,000, ignores the constituency's dumb support.
Well, it's not uncommon, too. It's not a surprise as well that most of those legislative grants hit during election season. So when I ran against the Senate president back a couple of years ago, they were being handed out like donuts on Free Donut Day. I don't know the good analogy there, but
no, I get that.
So,
what's your priority? By the way, you've got 3 Democrats that are running on that side. The primary is going to be when? Remind me. Their primary.
The primary is in July.
Okay.
I don't have the exact date.
And
for the Democratic
your
primary.
election, the general election, will be
August 22nd.
Okay, so you got some time to beat the streets in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Concerned about running an election in the summertime when everyone is chilling?
It's definitely a revenge of the nerds type of election. It's going to take a lot of behind-the-scenes work as far as identifying, because it's going to be a very low turnout. It's just the way it is. We're going to be in the middle of tourist season in August in Newport, when there's going to be, Newport brings in 3 million plus visitors a year in the summertime. So it's going to be a challenge for Newport and Jamestown as far as identifying the voters and reaching them.
Well, it depends a lot about what kind of media attention comes for the race. We'll see how low it's going to be, but I think you're wise to think about it being low turnout, so boots on the ground will be important. You talk about tourism, you're quoted as saying that you know, the economy of Newport does fine when it comes to tourism, but absent that, there's some serious problems, or notwithstanding that, there are some serious problems, correct?
Very serious problems. It's similar to having, if you have a house, a kitchen, or a bathroom, and the floor looks great, but underneath it's rotting, and eventually if someone falls through the floor. And right now, Newport's, things may appear great, especially if you're visiting the city, but Newport and Jamestown population, our population has dropped 50% in the last 40 years. That's a lot of people. And it's actually, by the city's own projections, is estimated to drop another 12% in the next 15 years. So we're losing our population, and
Attributed to what?
It's attributed to a number of things. The main thing is there's no jobs. The second is affordable housing.
No jobs other than bartending and waitressing and
Correct.
that kind of
I
thing.
mean, obviously, my kids, I'm not trying to put them into college so they can work in a restaurant until they're 40 years old. There's, although those are great jobs, there's a lot of great jobs, summer jobs and all. As far as your year-round jobs, that's the challenge for Newport. And you know, my wife and I, we deal with we're trying to find a house to live in Newport, and that's difficult. And
well, you're an entrepreneur, by my recollection.
Yes, I own an electrical supply business.
Okay. And you're renting?
Yes, we're renting.
Because
renting
you
a house.
can't find.
We want to live in. We want to stay in Newport. It's important to us, and at this time, we want to be able to afford to buy a house and to not have a large. I'm getting a little personal here, but and not to have a large mortgage. So we want to be able to do it the right way.
Yeah, it's fiscally prudent. But you're telling me what the opportunities for family quality real estate at affordable prices is just not there.
In those projections I gave you with the loss of population, and this is by the city's own comprehensive land use plan, that the city's families, people under 30, between ages 26 and 39, that figure is dropping tremendously. Most folks are moving into other cities or they're moving out of state.
What's the solution?
The solution is we've been talking for years about redeveloping the North End and we have a lot of empty buildings from public schools we consolidated our public schools to the Pell School. And so we have about 3 or 4 schools that have been sitting vacant, waiting to become business development centers, economic hubs. We also are going to have 75 acres of land freed up when we redo the bridge, which people call the bridge to nowhere. I think we talked about it last time.
Yeah.
And it's been talked about, but I think what we really need and what my main priority is to have somebody that is going to have the mayor's vision, which is the same as mine as far as getting this accelerated. And we need somebody upstate to be a facilitator with that.
Well, doesn't this, let's see, okay, when we come back, we'll talk about this, because if anybody could do that, it would be somebody in leadership. So what's a new guy going to be able to do when we come back? Stay with us. Mike Smith is running for state senate to replace the leader or the president who's left for the hospital industry, and talking about the economy of Newport. All right, so I think I get your point, but you're telling me that well, your criticism of the Senate president was perhaps that she was too engaged in statewide issues versus the local stuff. Then again, when you have veteran status, you're much more inclined to be able to bring home some kind of economic bacon. As a freshman senator, by the way, all of those running, the 3 Democrats, all of whom will be invited here, will also get these same questions. What's a now new member going to be able to do to bring that kind of economic flush to the city of Newport?
Obviously, it's a challenge. The first is just to see what, to try to work, to try to get involved and to try to work with the Democrats and Republicans that are up there, and to play a part in things. I mean, it's obviously right. I'm going to be, if I was to win, I'm the new guy on the block. I have to, earn my way, earn my keep in a way. But I think that if their energy is to make a change, I think you can find a way to do it. And different aspects of my life and different challenges that I've always faced, if there's a will, there's a way. And I think that a lot of times people will say to me, well, how are you going to make a change? There's hardly any Republicans there. There's no independents. Well, even a little bit of light disrupts the darkness. That's the way I like to look at it, and that's my hope.
All right. We'll leave that there for now. Tell me about some of the big statewide issues. Where are you on the car tax reform?
I think we should eliminate the car tax. I think we need to become more competitive with other states in that area.
Where do we find, so you're with Mattiello and his 5-year plan?
Now that he's on board with that plan, I've been with like Patricia Morgan's view and many others people's view on that all along.
Where are we going to get $40 million a year up to $200 million in the budget?
Well,
especially when you need a little juice back in Newport.
I think that the main way we get more money overall is to create a more diverse economy for Newport, Jamestown, and our state. We see states all over the country that don't have a car tax that are able to perform very well with it.
Economic activity will trickle to the state budget.
There's a lot of areas that we are spending a lot of money on but not getting a great result. So obviously we need to trim spending in those areas. I'm talking about the main one on my mind would be roads and bridges. We have one of the highest spending in the country for roads and bridges, and the DOT figures that are out now show us as having the worst roads and bridges in the country. So obviously...
You're not with the Roadworks program, though, I'm guessing, if you're playing the Republican script here, correct? Tolls, yes, no?
No.
Okay.
No.
What about the 2 years of free college tuition, the governor's plan? Give me 30 seconds on that.
There's nothing free. I have two kids in college. I don't... When a politician starts talking about free things, especially free college, I don't really see a plan there. I don't see a real plan. I just see it being a bunch of words right now. I think that the issues we face with education is what CCRI and other colleges are dealing with, where many kids are being graduated and they still don't have the remedial skills and they have to go back for remedial education. I think education reform is another major area where we can possibly be able to compete with Massachusetts, who's #1, who's just right up the road here, and save money and be more effective.
All right, why don't we do this? I'm sure that you'll commit to spending time with the Democratic winner later in the season, prior to the August election. We'll invite you back and we'll get into it. Roll the sleeves up, throw the jacket down, get after it.
See who that is.
Glad to see you back in the race.
Thank you.
You were an admirable performer last time, and who knows?
Thank you.
Could be Senator Smith sooner or later.
Well, Smith goes to Providence. I don't know.
Thanks, Mike. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Tomorrow night's program, the concept of civic engagement. 2 winners of some seed money from the Rhode Island Foundation will be here to talk about how the community becomes more engaged. What that means, you'll have to find out tomorrow night. See you on the radio tomorrow at 3 on WPRO. Thanks for watching. Good night.